everyone. Welcome to another edition of Strength Through Stress. And we have Miko here joining us for today's session. So I just want to go ahead and say that feel free to follow us on our social media sites. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us with the contact information listed below. This is a very important session because, for the sixth session, because the future sessions will be a little bit dependent on this session. So we'll continue with Psychology of Stress, which is the third part of the series. And as I mentioned, this is critical because of critical thinking. Because we want to go ahead and share a little bit more what critical thinking is, metacognition, higher order thinking, and scientific thinking. So these are things that we want you to have a better grasp on as we proceed with our other sessions in the future. This is also critical because for the first few slides, we will be discussing things that is a little bit repetitive with future slides. So for the future, I am not going to be repeating those anymore. So, all right. And then as I mentioned, this is a continuation of Psychology of Stress. So we'll continue Maslow, Seligman in terms of positive psychology and having a different perspective here of Tibetan. And we will review the psychology of stress, okay? And then as always, we're going to do with the journal writing, willpower, and growth mindset. Any questions for today's session, Mika? Good, okay. All right, good. Okay, so for every session, we are going to share with you that you are joining us with this understanding that with implicit consent that you are allowing us to video and record everything and to publish everything for educational and informational purposes. Some disclaimer, information again is just for educational purposes only and not prescriptive, so make sure you reach out to the rightful professionals. Discussions here being that this is strength through stress may cause unwarranted stress and bring about unwarranted memories or feelings or what have you. So if you need help immediately, make sure you contact 911 or talk to your medical professional. Ground rules. So as always, respect is very, very critical. That you can go ahead and participate through or interact verbally or chat or email. And confidentiality, it may be a little bit limited, but if you want to change your name or not say your name or mute your video, meaning you're not seen, you can join this in the future. My background. So why am I doing this? I have 2 decades of teaching and my bachelor's is in psychology, graduate in graduate school for counseling, and I earned a summa cum laude there or with high distinction. And then I'm a dissertation away from my post-secondary and adult education. I'm also here in the AA physical therapy practice where we focus on prevention. And then we have Top Virtual Staffing Solutions, which is where we have these Strength Through Stress channel videos regarding, for the previous ones and future. So what is TVSS? So we're a remote staffing agency and we also provide tutoring. Miko, care to speak what you were doing here? You're on mute.
Sure. So here, I'm with my tutor. As you can see in the picture, I'm doing the keyboard. And in that particular session, that particular tutoring, I think I was learning how to play Thunder from Imagine Dragons.
Okay. And again, this is one way for you to go ahead and learn, correct?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Great, thank you. So why strength through stress? Stress management is a bit of a misnomer. So for example, right now, we have the COVID-19 situation, and unfortunately this will break somebody, even if they're roughly in exactly the same plight. But others can continue to go ahead and learn and develop and be good with this. So, and the other reason why it's a misnomer is because we do not manage stress. We do not manage COVID-19. We manage what we do. So for me, in this around second week of March, third week of March, I was not very functional. I was just binge watching, sleeping, binge watching, and sleeping. So I was this person right here in terms of the broken light bulb, if you may. I wasn't functional. But here I am moving forward, doing all of these sessions that hopefully could be beneficial or helpful to our fellow community members. And this is one way for me to be functional. So yes, even as we record it right now, starting in the third week, I think we're third week of May here, is that we continue to be as productive and constructive as possible in spite of everything that's going on. So you manage your reactions, but you don't necessarily manage the stressor itself. And it can either make us be better or be like this broken light bulb. And then why strength through stress? Normally when you identify stress management, it's always focusing on the negative. But we want to focus on the positive that you're going to gain from whatever stressful situations that you are in. And think about this. Why do we exercise? Why do we work out? So here I am, it's part of the physical therapy practice. That's what it is. If you're in injury or you're focusing on prevention, you need to do exercises to strengthen your muscles. Just the same thing with stress. It strengthens us. So no doubt, carrying 800 pounds, I don't know what the poundage is for each plate here, but if you're going to carry, I think this is a 50-pound plate, if you're going to carry 400 pounds of plate right off the bat, it can be overwhelming, obviously. But with this gentleman right here, he built his strength through this. And so that's why with strength through stress, we gain our strength with whatever stressful situation that we're in and learn from things. All right, so why is it free? There's so many people out there doing heroic things, really good things, whether it's the armed forces, whether it's our hospital and essential workers, taking care of groceries, mail, and so many more that I'm missing to go ahead and share. So this is just my little input that I could go ahead and provide on why we're doing this for free, or why we are providing these sessions for free. Okay. Also, we want to promote virtual companionship because social isolation was already a problem before COVID-19. And you can easily imagine with the physical distancing that we're doing, this could be an issue. So to learn more, just look for our social media site regarding virtual companionship. Okay. So why is this free? Well, because of Miko. Miko, care to share what you were doing here? Please unmute yourself. All right, while he's unmuting himself, the reason why we're doing this for free is because I want to leave something behind, if you may. Miko, just unmute yourself so we don't have to wait for you. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. All right. So with why I'm doing this for free is because I want to leave a library for Miko regarding videos, because I'm sure he will go through some stressful situations and hopefully he could learn from this. He's learning it right now, and hopefully this is something he can get back into as we move forward. Go ahead, Miko. What were you doing here?
I was doing programming with another tutor of mine, and I was starting CSS, but in that particular time, HTML and CSS. Those are programming websites, or I think programming type. So this was a website that I created without being asked for, and I have improved it. So it is my #1 website.
Yes. Something about planets or the solar system, correct?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So again, the bottom line here is if you need tutoring, and it can be at any level, because if I want to learn programming as well, I'm going to learn from our tutor here to proceed. So, all right, so this is why we're doing it free as well. And again, in this physically distant world that we need to do, but we need to continue to be socially connected. So we're just providing all of these sessions for free. And more importantly, and this is for every session, we focus on different nonprofit organizations. So we want you guys to donate to worthwhile causes that is local to your area or to your state, or anything global for that matter. So for today's session, we want you to go ahead and be aware of what we do at Knights of Columbus. So I'm a third-degree Knights of Columbus brother, if you may. And with this, we provide a lot of helpful things to local societies. So you can join your local Knights of Columbus chapter or the global one, and you can learn more online. So again, every session we highlight different nonprofit organizations. So please provide support to them. And one of the other thing too that I want to share is that we have a GoFundMe page. So I know this is free, but if you want to contribute to our GoFundMe page, then you can also support our cause, wherein Miko gets a small percentage. The business gets a little bit of a percentage, and all of the nonprofit organizations will get an equal share. So if, for example, all of the nonprofit organizations here you find very helpful, then you are able to, if you're able to go ahead and contribute for whatever amount with the GoFundMe page, it will be divided equally to all of these nonprofit organizations. So just feel free to go to our website. But more importantly for today, specifically, if you want to learn more what Knights of Columbus do in your local chapters or nationally or even globally, please find out a little bit more, okay? All right, so why free? We want to focus on what you want to be addressed. And if you have questions, and we want to focus on you. On that note, Miko, do you have any questions for me?
No.
No? Okay, wonderful, great, thank you. Okay, wonderful. So, as the agenda for today is critical thinking. This is really important. Why I want to highlight this in terms of psychology of stress, because we need to think critically of whatever situation we are in. And that's always important. And let's go ahead and learn a little bit more what critical thinking is. It is the art of analyzing and evaluating thinking with an aim for continuous improvement. So what it is that with your thought processes, you try to analyze and evaluate exactly what you're thinking about. And you are moving in the direction that, are you getting better? Are you improving? And that's what critical thinking is. Now, there are multiple aspects regarding critical thinking. First is you analyze. You break it apart of what your thought processes are and the components of it, and you go ahead and identify if everything makes sense, if all of these connections make sense. Because just in this COVID-19 world of ours, there's a lot of misinformation out there that we need to really be critical and analyze and break things apart and make sure whatever we're learning, whatever we're gaining is something that is really meaningful. What else about critical thinking? You evaluate whatever your thought processes are and what your strengths are and whatever your challenges are. For example, for me, you guys could somewhat see the banner that we have here, the poster that we have here. And we have a lot of body parts here because this is a physical therapy practice. And for me, I know it's a little bit of a challenge for me to remember all of these technical anatomical terms such as flexor, digitorum brevis, adductor hallucis, flexor. I can't even say these things. But there are people out there who are very gifted that they see this word and they fully understand it and they remember it and they know where it is and so on and so forth. So I know that's my challenge specifically. My strength, I think my strength is to be able to connect certain dots, certain positions, certain thought processes. So that's what it is. Miko, do you want to talk about your strength of how you think, of how you learn?
No, it's okay.
You're okay? All right. If you do, but that's something that I want you to start thinking about. What's really helpful for you in terms of learning and thinking, and then what are the things that challenge you? So think about your tutors, what works for you, and your instructors and how you have shifted from face-to-face to online learning right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Okay. So with critical thinking, there are intellectual standards. And we will discuss this a little bit more extensively a little bit later. But just an introduction here, you need to be clear, you need to be accurate. Whatever it is that you're thinking about, it has to be relevant, it has to be broad enough, and it has to be fair and precise. It has to be significant, and there's some level of logic behind it, and it's not shallow. There's depth in it. And with these intellectual standards, you want to apply it, or you need to apply them to elements of reasoning. In terms of points of view, the questions that you ask, what's the purpose of your thinking, the information that you get, how you infer, the concepts, the implications, and assumptions. So all of these intellectual standards that you have, you need to apply them to elements of reasoning. And with your elements of reasoning, you want to develop, and this is the critical part, this is what you want to develop. Intellectual humility, meaning we don't know everything, and these are things we'll focus on a little bit more. That's autonomy, intellectual courage, intellectual perseverance, integrity, empathy, fair-mindedness, and you have confidence in your reasoning ability. Okay? So with the intellectual standards that we need to have, you apply them and you are able to develop. So if you want to go back to what critical thinking is, there is this continuous improvement. So let's learn more what intellectual standards are. Asking questions that meet these standards are great. You need to be clear with your question. And with that, you need to be accurate, precise, and relevant with the questions that you ask. And it has to be deep. Excuse me. It has to be deep, significant, and logical. So with the questions that you ask, you have to be meeting these certain standards. And it has to be fair. You don't want to be asking way too many leading questions. And it's broadly based that you want to encompass a lot of things. And all of these, you apply it to intellectual standards. Okay, these are the intellectual standards that you go ahead and do and have in terms of asking good questions. On that note, Miko, do you have questions so far? You may have to unmute yourself. And I know you're typing in notes so that we can put this in our social media and everything else. But go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, speaking of typing, I kind of needed it just a bit slower.
A little bit slower? Okay, that's fine. And here's the deal. Remember, you're only gathering major points, right?
Yes.
You don't have to type every word here because it's already here. So that's completely fine. I will try to be a little bit slower, that's fine. But if you miss out anything, again, we have these recordings. You can learn afterwards. And with everything that he said right now, if you are in school, if you are in work training, you need to be able to go ahead and identify how quickly you can go ahead and learn or what have you. So this is completely fine with what Miko has identified, okay? And this is where, in terms of him evaluating the learning process if things are too fast. So it's okay if you miss a little bit of things here or there, but I want you to be asking questions. Hey, can you discuss this again, whatever this is? Okay? Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. And then at the same time, as I mentioned, I will be going through some of these things a little bit more in depth as we proceed here. So some of these, I'm just talking real quick because I know I'll be discussing them a little bit more, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so the mind, intellectual standards. We need to be clear of our questions. If you want to get a specific answer, ask the right and clear question. Because if your question is muddied, then your response will be muddy. It's as simple as that. All right. What else regarding intellectual standards of critical thinking? And this is where I'm going more in depth now, Miko, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You need to be accurate. Because if you want to target a specific response, not necessarily leading, but you need to be accurate with your thought processes, meaning how would we be able to verify that what you have learned is accurate? And how could we be sure about the information that we're learning? Okay, so going back to COVID-19, it's accurate information, or relatively accurate, or more accurate information if you're listening to medical professionals, to scientists, to epidemiologists. Okay, so you need to be accurate as for an intellectual standard of critical thinking. Next one is precision. So as you can see here, if you have used a caliper, it's absolutely precise. You want it to be measured. So you go ahead and ask how much, how many, whatever the details that you need to ask so you can get and receive a precise response. Okay? So in terms of intellectual standards, you need to be precise. You need to know these details when you go ahead and think about certain things. All right, next one, relevance. So what are the connections of these things? So if you're thinking about something, so for example, COVID-19, what's the relation to that with business and economics? What's the relation to that to education? What's the relation to that with one's health and wellness, health and well-being, and so on and so forth? And for us at Top Virtual Staffing Solutions, this is why we're focusing on this, because we have tutoring classes, and this is where I'm just providing free sessions here. But the relevance of this, and that's the reason why I'm using COVID-19, because that's what a major stressor is right now. So how does this relate to other things? Okay, are you making those connections, Mika?
I missed the second one.
Which one?
Before this.
Oh, before this? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, precision.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You got it, right?
Yep, getting that right now.
All right, sounds good. So after relevance, you need to go dive in deeper, because obviously simple situations stressors aren't simple. They're always complicated. So you have to go ahead and consider other points for you to be able to think a little bit more critically. Okay, so going back to COVID-19, what are the complexities of this? So right now, as we're recording this, they're trying to start opening by phases. But is it really absolutely safe right now? And then what if one county opens versus another? And then what's the long-term impact on this? Because at this point in time, there's no cure and there's no vaccination. So we'll go ahead and find out eventually. But again, these are very complex times, but you just really think about things a little bit deeper. Next one is breadth, okay? All right. You need to be able to approach things from different perspectives, from different points of views. So if you can see from this picture here, it's distorted this way because it's not just a black and white thing of what the situation is. You need to be able to view COVID-19 again with all of these aspects that impact us. And that's why we have these virtual town hall sessions that we're recording, or we are continue to record. So we have already recorded with a business leader, with a medical doctor, and then we are going to have a state delegate who's also a doctor and also a lawyer, and other special guests in the future. So you need to view COVID-19 from different perspectives and with different experts with different backgrounds. So, there. Know what this is, Miko? Starts with an S? I know it's been a while.
Sudoku.
Sudoku. All right, great. Sudoku works in being logical, correct?
Yes.
That there needs to be an order with what you need to do, right?
Yep.
So with an intellectual standard is that you need to be able to have a step-by-step process. So if we're opening up the economy through phases, are we reaching those step-by-steps critically and scientifically? Is that the reasonable step to do? Okay? So that's another intellectual standard of critical thinking. Let's move on to the next one. What is the significance? Why is it important? What is important? So with the COVID-19 reality right now, you need to sift through all of the information and really identify exactly what is significant for you, what is important to you. And you need to be able to identify why that is critical or important. Okay? All right, next. What game is this?
Chess.
All right, which has been a while that we have been playing. I think we've been focusing too much on Scrabble lately.
Yeah.
All right, so we need to be fair. Are all possibilities considered? Are all assumptions justified? So in chess, technically speaking, you are a little bit of a disadvantage when you play the black piece. But just a little bit. But generally speaking, you have the same set of pieces, okay? So you go ahead and identify what the possibilities are, what the assumptions are, and with assumptions, you need to make sure that they're justified and informed assumptions as much as possible. So critical thinking, again, you continuously practice the intellectual standards that we have just discussed, the past 5-8 slides, in order to achieve intellectual traits, okay? You practice accuracy, you practice depth, you practice breadth, you practice fairness, and so on and so forth, in order to achieve intellectual traits. Now, let's discuss intellectual traits further. As I mentioned earlier, intellectual humility. Nobody knows everything. Would we all agree on that? Miko?
Yes.
We have these limitations of knowledge. That's why you reach out to experts who have received the proper training, education, and certifications. Okay? You recognize prejudice. What does that mean? It's not only about prejudice against skin color or age or what have you. But we are human beings. We have our biases. That's a given. We have our biases. Think about this. People like certain types of food, which I don't. There are certain types of food that I like that Miko doesn't. So we already have these prejudice in one shape or form. but we need to recognize them so that we are as fair as possible. And we are humble that we don't know everything. All right. Questions, knowledge from multiple perspectives. So for example, with this, the psychology of stress, you have been learning from different perspectives, from different theories on how we approach stressors from a mental or cognitive point of view. Okay? And then going back to COVID-19, listen to these experts. And again, that's why we have virtual hall sessions with different experts out there. This is the opposite of intellectual arrogance. And this is really scary when somebody is ignorant and arrogant at the same time. That's a very bad combination. If you're ignorant that you don't know well enough, and then you're arrogant of your ignorance, it's scary. And that's why you have all of these information out there that you are getting or receiving, even on the high ranks of office that I'm not going to name. And you kind of scratch your head. That's really scary for you to be saying those things. So if you are ignorant or arrogant and arrogant at the same time, that's really scary because it's not good for yourself. It's not good for the community members that you have. And that is why we're focusing on critical thinking right now, especially intellectual humility. For me, I don't know everything about COVID-19. That's why I'm inviting all of these guests to be our speakers to discuss the subject matter that is significant or relevant to COVID-19. Okay, so with my decades of education, this is one of the things that I'm really fighting. I was fighting because there's so many ignorant and arrogant attitudes out there that hopefully we get to lessen or reduce. And hopefully we all gain some level of intellectual humility. That we do not know everything. That we continuously learn. And we learn from experts, from credentialed experts. So that's intellectual humility. Next, intellectual trait that we hope to develop is intellectual courage. That we have the courage to examine societal norms. So right now we have a new norm in terms of staying at home, and you can go ahead and listen to the news that they want to go back and open things up. I understand that. But let's examine things more appropriately. Is it really accurate and safe to go ahead and do that right now? Only time will tell, only science will tell. Right? Just like one of the leaders out there that's identified, we do not control the virus. The virus controls us. So even if we impose our will on this and start opening up, it may cause more problems. But then again, who knows? But at least that's what the science says. Okay? So if you're examining social norms, societal norms that we should open up right now, okay, understandable. But is it scientifically based? I'm not so sure. You're willing to challenge beliefs. Sure, it's good to challenge science. But what is your different theory or perspective to provide scientific evidence that you're questioning COVID-19? That you're questioning the virus that's out there? So, sure, that's fine to challenge beliefs. But the important thing again is you have scientific basis on things, that you have scientific evidence to support whatever your beliefs are. Okay? And then at the same time, willing to accept beliefs. So, in the next few chapters, we will be discussing the importance of faith in one's development. I'm not going to question somebody else's belief. That's what they believe in. That's completely fine. That's their religion, that's their faith. I will respect that. And I will accept that. But when it comes to something that's rather tangible, tangible, yeah, you can touch it, but you don't see it. But you can see it under a superpower microscope. And that's where COVID-19 is. How can you go ahead and challenge that and then at the same time accept it. So we just need to accept this is our reality for now. Embrace different ideas. So again, from different perspectives, COVID-19 is not only a virus and that's it. What are the other implications of it? Okay, another intellectual trait is intellectual integrity. We want to be honest about shortcomings. We have limitations. Yes, Miko, go ahead.
Can you go back real quick?
All right, that's fine. Again, if you miss something, and again, you're not typing exactly the same words, right?
No. Okay, thanks.
And that's what it is, intellectual courage. Miko is asking, hey, I think I missed something. I want to get that point. Okay? So everything's clear here with intellectual courage?
Yep.
All right, awesome. So intellectual integrity. We are honest about shortcomings. We don't know everything. Holding self to the same standards as others. What it means is that if you're thinking this way, if you're doing this, then you need to be able to hopefully expect that from others. But if you're expecting other people to be better with thought processes, with thinking, and so on and so forth, then you need to be holding yourself with the same accountability. So with my conversations with Miko and I, he's really good with keyboard. He's really good reading all of these thick nonfiction books. And I tell him that's a shortcoming of mine. So I try to go ahead and learn from him how he's able to go ahead and do those things. Okay? Clear link between thinking and acting. And these are conversations that Miko and I have as well. Don't think about it, you do it. So for example, taking care of the dog. If there's no water and if you're just going to tell me, oh, you were thinking about it, the dog still doesn't have water. So it's really critical that whatever we're thinking about, we put it into action. So here I am, yes, sure, I'm still impacted negatively with the COVID-19 in one shape or form, but I need to act on it, and that's why I'm doing these sessions that hopefully will be helpful for everyone here. Next one is behavior matching belief. So if I'm going to go in and say, yes, I believe the science and the evidence that they provide, then my behavior has to be the same. If I go out in public, I have to wear a mask. Okay? I wash hands before, after, during, whenever. You wash your hands. You avoid touching your face. All right? I'm sure with this recording, I may be touching my face in one shape or form here, and that would be a not good example. But I know before I did the recording, I did wash my hands and I just stayed in the clinic. And at this point in time, we haven't been receiving patients yet. But I believe we will be having that soon as we continue to follow local and government official statements as well. Okay? So again, your behavior matches belief. That's what integrity is. You do what you say. You do what you think. Don't just think about it, and that's it. All right, next one, intellectual perseverance. COVID-19 is difficult, and this is a marathon. And with one of my virtual town hall sessions, the medical doctor pretty much identified this is a challenging situation, and it's a long-term thing. So, are you willing to work through this difficulty? Are you willing to persevere? And I know it's challenging, no doubt. But this is why I'm doing these recordings, to hopefully move you in that direction, that we will all persevere and work through this. Because I understand life was already challenging before COVID-19, with whatever we're all facing. And then this is added on to us. And then all of the other misinformation, that's making things a little bit messier. What do we do about that? So we're all work through it. Ability to try and use various methods on how you're going to persevere. How are you going to work through things? How are you using digital media right now to continue to be socially connected in spite of the physical distance that we need to have? That's what we need to do. we need to endure. We need to continuously learn and respond to whatever the new information that we have. As much as it would be fine and nice for me to continue to binge watch, that's not going to do me any good. And that's not going to do Miko any good. So I need to go ahead and continuously learn and respond to these situations. So that is intellectual perseverance. We need to persevere through this, and we will all do. So continue to go ahead and listen out there, learn out there, and make sure, again, you're listening and learning to the experts out there. All right, now I'm touching my eye. So, intellectual autonomy. You are autonomous. That you value your thought processes, but you're not easily swayed what you get from people out there. Okay? You think for yourself. Sure, I'm sharing this webinar, this session, but I still want you to think for yourself. Is this really critical for you in terms of critical thinking? For you to get better, for you to feel better. So you're not swayed by unreasoned arguments. So for me, if it's not scientifically based, if there's no scientific evidence, I'm putting it to the side. I don't want to hear that argument, none whatsoever. If you don't have evidence, I don't want to hear it. Adjust your thoughts to reasoning. Okay? You should be reasonable in how things are. Okay? So, again, with intellectual traits of critical thinking, these are things that you want to achieve. You want to gain some humility, that we don't know everything. Autonomy, that you are able to think on your own. We persevere through really difficult situations. And when you're learning, that's what it is. It will continuously push you forward. So Miko, is programming challenging you a little bit, that you're continuously learning something new?
Okay.
Finish your train of thought there? You're good?
Yep.
Okay. So are you persevering? Do you have your own thought process when you're learning keyboard and programming? Is it pushing you towards that?
I'm not sure. Programming is definitely easier than the piano, in my opinion.
Okay, but from your perspective, because others will be easier for piano. And I remember you keep telling me you have Ovido, you have a good sense of ear that you are able to play things just out of tune. For me, even if you teach me, it's a challenge. I need to continuously work on it. But you're more natural than I am. But in spite of that being natural, like what you said, okay. Piano is more challenging than programming. And programming, you just barely started, and here you are. You're doing all of these really good stuff now, right? Okay. All right. So these are the intellectual traits that we hope to achieve in terms of critical thinking. Let's move on to the taxonomy of higher order thinking skills. We don't want to just remember things. Don't just memorize these things. And this is what I was telling Miko when he goes through these sessions. Don't just type exactly the same words. Because that's just remembering and typing words. You need to understand what you're doing. You need to apply. You need to be able to analyze all of the information that you have and evaluate whatever information you're thinking about is really worthwhile. And through all of those, you go ahead and create something. So again, for me to feel productive and constructive, that's why I'm doing these sessions. And I'm not asking you guys, you guys don't have an exam here. Well, I'm working with Miko in terms of to prepare him for college. So he's going to have an exam in one shape or form here. So that's something we'll discuss a little bit further. But the exam questions that I'll be using is not identifying who's Bloom, who's Freud. All right. A little bit deeper, the questions that I would be asking, it's more of understanding and applying and be able to analyze these concepts. But more importantly is what are we creating here? So for Miko, he's typing his notes right now because once we post this on YouTube, the notes that he types, those are the information and data points that I will be using to put in the body of text. So that's Bloom's taxonomy of higher order thinking skills, that we aim to move to creation. And here we are creating these strength through stress sessions. All right, metacognition, thinking about thinking. That sounds redundant, but how do you understand that, Miko? What do you think is thinking about thinking?
Thinking what someone else is thinking?
That's a possibility, but for the most part, you're thinking how you are thinking, how you are learning. So you have a level of understanding and comprehension of what you're doing. So you're telling me the keys on the keyboard, and I'm like, I'm not in the level of understanding what is the C and the F and G. All of these notes, no. You just tell me exactly what to do, and that's the only thing that I will try to remember for now, because my level of comprehension, my level of understanding is not so high. So I need to go ahead and think and accurately, because if I can, I'll go ahead and tell you, oh, I know what the C is or D is or what have you. No, I don't. I just want to know what to press, and that's it. Okay. Next is, how do you know that you know what you need to know? It sounds redundant again. But does this make sense to you?
Not really.
Okay, think about this. How do you know about COVID-19? How are you learning about COVID-19? And then with the process of you learning, do you know exactly what you know?
Oh, I think I get it.
Okay. Do you want to explain?
Is there proof that that what you know is what you need to know? It's
Exactly.
proof of what you need to know. Proof. It's hard to explain.
You're fine, but you understand it, right?
Yes.
And that's the thing. I think the most important word that you use there is proof. You have proof that however you're learning is rather important. It's rather critical. And then whatever it is that you are knowing, it is relevant, it's important. And that you actually know what you know. So in spite of me, for example, answering the contact tracing session or class, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on it, but at least I knew a little bit more, especially coming from the source, which is Hopkins. So Coursera course, yes, I'm advertising it. I would actually highlight that everybody answers a contact tracing or go through a contact tracing course. There's so many being developed now. But one of the first few ones is through the Coursera course through Hopkins. And take that class, take that session, so that we will have a better understanding of what COVID-19 is. All right, power of thoughts. Again, this is psychology of stress. Everything begins with your thoughts. You want to watch your thoughts because they become what you say. These are your words. Watch what you say because you act on it. You do things. Watch what you do because what you do is now a habit. And if it's a habit of yours, that's who you are as a human being. That's your character. And watch your character, because that's your future. That's going to be your destiny. So, this is from Lao Tzu. What? All right. Do you need to unmute yourself, or do you have questions? All right, you're in mute, so I'm not sure. I could just.
It's okay.
You're okay?
I thought I knew the person who you were talking about.
Oh, okay. Who were you thinking about?
I don't know. It just sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar? Okay. So he's one of the more famous philosophers, if you may. But does this make sense to you that we have to watch what we think about, because that's what our future will be eventually? Okay? So that's what it is. Watch what you think about. Now, I know in terms of critical thinking earlier, you don't end up just thinking, you do it. But that's what it is for the most part. If we think about it, we say it, we act on it, and we continuously the same actions over and over. It's a habit, and if that's a habit, that's your character, and that's who you are. So with this COVID-19 thing, watch what you think about, and then what you say about it. And with what you say, what do you do about it? All right? And then right now with a habit that you are forming, so right now, for example, for Miko, he's supposed to be in school. That's why I'm engaging him with all of these other sessions. Because I want this to be a habit of him and act on things and not just watch TV, which he barely does to begin with anyway. And that he doesn't just read nonfiction books. It's good that he's reading, but not only just nonfiction books all the time. So we are creating a habit when he needs to do schoolwork, when he needs to answer online, and so on and so forth. Go ahead, Miko, you were about to say something. Were you about to say something? Okay.
Was I going to say something?
No, you're fine?
No.
Okay, if you do remember it, just share, okay? So again, this is psychology of stress, and this is why for future sessions, I'm going to tell you guys to watch this specific session because of everything that we have discussed so far, and a little bit more later. All right, so scientific method. I know I keep saying it's important to listen to the scientists, to the researchers. We have a question, we have a problem. That's COVID-19. What's your hypothesis behind it? Do you remember what the hypothesis is, Miko? In terms of scientific method and scientific thinking? All right. I'll just continue here. You want to test your hypotheses. And then after you test your hypotheses, you draw your conclusions. And after drawing conclusions, you go ahead and identify what the results are, and you want to retest it if it's valid and reliable with what your results are. Go ahead, Mika. Do you remember now what hypothesis is?
Hypotheses is what you think.
If it's what you think, if the first step is a problem, then what would be the hypothesis? Is the potential?
The answer?
Yes, it's a potential answer. You hypothesize this is one way to go ahead and deal with COVID-19, and you test that hypothesis. So right now, governments in all different levels are opening in various types of phases. We test the hypothesis if it works, or there will be a lot of people, unfortunately, that will be impacted by this, health-wise. So, unfortunately, I mean, and obviously, we cannot experiment on human beings in this way, but in essence, we are somewhat in this experimental phase, if this is what we should go ahead and continue right now. whether we like it or not. So if you're going to ask me, I'm not sure. I don't know when, how, where. I'm not an expert on it, but that's what they're saying. So, okay, and as long as we continue to listen to science, and that's why it is important in terms of critical thinking. The information that you're getting is precise, is accurate. It's relevant and significant because all of these scientists are going through these basic steps of scientific method. And in whatever we do, we want to be a scientific thinker. We identify what the problem is, what's a potential answer, and will these answers yield the results to support the hypotheses? And do you think it will happen again? Okay, so, all right. Any questions with scientific thinking, critical thinking, and Bloom's taxonomy? Are you good, Miko? All right. Now you're on mute, so I'm not sure if you're okay. You're okay?
I'm okay.
All right, lovely, great. So we'll just continue here in the last few slides here with Maslow regarding self-actualization. Oh my goodness, I thought I already fixed this. I've still missed the Z. Oh well. And that's what it is for critical thinking. We will all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But here I am being critical that, oh, this was already raised by Miko and I still missed it. And I thought I already fixed it. But, oh well. Go ahead, Miko.
We did this a few sessions ago or last session. Do I still have to write it down?
Remember, this is a continuation. We were not completely done with Maslow.
Okay, got it.
Yes, but thank you for asking. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is metacognition as a proof. He's thinking about thinking. He knows, he's already familiar with this, that we have already discussed this. That in itself is evidence of what thinking about thinking is. All right, do I need to write down notes? Because this is something that we've already done. And as I go ahead and clarify, and as I mentioned in the first few slides here, this is a continuation of Maslow. All right. Okay. So this specific slide, this is something that's a repeat. Oh, this is what I have already fixed. I think I just missed to delete that specific slide. But these are other things that we need to discuss with Maslow. Characteristics. One is efficient perception of reality. No doubt, regardless of what your age is, you want to go ahead and think young, that you're able to continuously learn. But we have to go ahead and acknowledge where we are. So if you're whatever age you are in, and if you think you're still an infant like a 2-month-old, then your perception of reality is wrong or false. Now, unless of course if a human being is suffering from a cognitive deficiency, then that's a whole different story. But if you're not suffering from any cognitive issues, none whatsoever, then we need to have an efficient perception of reality to become a self-actualized person. Okay? Remember, self-actualization is one of the top things that we want to achieve. You remember that, Miko? Yes? Okay. All right. Okay, so with self-actualized characteristics, yes, go ahead, Miko. Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Sorry, I just have to say, can you go back real quick?
What about it? What do you want to know?
I need to type it down.
Okay. Remember, you're not typing exactly the same words, right?
I didn't type anything for it yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Good?
Got it.
All right, lovely. Okay, so this one, you accept who you are. I I accept that I am not gifted in music. It takes, I was trying to go ahead and play the guitar before, but I really have to put so much effort in it just to play a few chords. The same thing with the keyboard. So I'm not musically gifted. So I accept that. That's fine. It's not, but when I want to go ahead and learn, I go ahead and learn it. So I'm learning from Miko. And I'm so super happy that he's patient with me with learning it. I accept that I have that limitation. Another form of self-actualized characteristics is naturalness and spontaneity. Seems like these two individuals right here, they're just naturally happy with this specific moment. It seems like they're doing something sort of spontaneous. You don't just grab people around the neck, right? So you become spontaneous with your life. So right now with COVID-19, sure, we still tried to stick with certain habits, with certain schedule. But at the same time, when we have the ability to be spontaneous, let's be spontaneous and be natural about it. Next one, problem centering. You try to avoid blaming others. Now I understand there's some level of accountability that we need to have. That's true. But let's always focus on what the solutions are. So for self-actualized individuals, okay, we have a COVID-19 problem. If you're an epidemiologist, then you're working on the solution, a direct solution. If you're a government official, you're trying to go ahead and balance what the science says and how we can continue to find ways to provide whatever we need to provide. Okay, so we focus on solving the problems and not necessarily just who. So that's a characteristic of a self-actualized person. The next one is being able to be on your own, and you're rather independent. Sure, interdependence is nice, but generally speaking, you are able to function and do things on your own. And when you are alone, you're actually fine with this. Now, there's a difference of social isolation versus being able to be alone. Being able to be alone is that you're able to be alone with your thoughts, you're fine with it. You're fine with yourself, and you're able to still do things on your own and still be constructive and productive. And then when you need to go ahead and connect to people, then you connect to people. So that's another characteristic of being self-actualized. All right, next one is always appreciate. You always want to appreciate whatever it is. So Miko, what are you thankful for right now? I can see you muted your video, but if you could go back online again.
Sorry.
You're fine.
What do I always appreciate?
It doesn't have to be always, but is there anything? Well, sure, if you want to answer that. But it's more of the act of always appreciating something. That you're thankful for this, you're thankful for that. And hopefully it's not only just material stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
I think it's...
What are you thankful for?
my family and food. Definitely food.
Okay. Meeting those physiological needs and belongingness needs, correct?
Yep.
Yes. So we always appreciate whatever that you have, you or whatever you're with. For me, I'm appreciative that we have technology right now. Can you imagine a century ago, we don't have technology, this type of technology for that matter. And how are people back then? We're isolating. So just put things into perspective in that regard. Okay. All right. Another characteristic of self-actualized people is to be creative. Miko, have you been learning video editing? Yes or no? Miko? Can you hear me? All right, I'm holding on.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And don't you think you can be a little bit more creative about it?
Maybe.
Maybe? How about your programming? Do you think that's creative?
Yes,
How about playing the keyboard?
definitely.
Right? So these are things, you're definitely way more creative than I am. So all I do is just highlight it and promote it for you, and use all of these avenues to go ahead and promote that. So even if I may have the same exact experiences, I'm not so sure if I'm going to be doing so hot just like you. But anyway, it's been fun. All right. Another characteristic of self-actualized individuals, the quality of your interpersonal relationships. So if you mentioned earlier you're thankful about your family, what is it, the quality of relationship? So it's not a matter of having 10 million social media friends, unless if you're an influencer and earning from it, then more power to you. All right. But it's the quality of what you provide. That's the next best thing. Okay. Well, not the next best thing. It's the most important thing. It's the quality of the relationships that you have. All right. Self-actualized characteristics. Human kinship. You don't just look after yourself. You don't only look after your family, but the society as a whole. Globally, the environment. And I have already shown this picture in one of the things that I've done, for example, with these individuals of Mother Teresa and Gandhi, of going beyond themselves and looking at what is their greater good for humanity. And that is what human kinship is. All right? Self-actualized characteristics is to be inclusive of others. We will all have differences. Externally, it's so easy to see what skin pigmentation that we have. But if you scrape off that skin pigmentation, who we are as Homo sapiens, we're all Homo sapiens. And we need to be inclusive in how we work with and deal with one another. Self-actualized characteristics, not fad dependent. Not because it's the in thing. If it's the in thing, is to be sad and depressed right now because of COVID-19. And I'm not saying that lightly. There are so many people being affected. But hopefully we can go beyond whatever the fad is. How can we go beyond that? And no doubt it is a completely challenging situation right now. And I'm not saying that this is nothing but fad. But hopefully we can all find ways to fight this. Okay? So not because somebody's wearing this or that or whatever. We are not dependent on what is the hot commodity. Because guess what? Whatever the hot thing is right now, it's going to be cold in the future. But guess what? I think, and this is my own bias, with critical thinking, scientific thinking, I don't think that's a fad that will go away quickly. And that's something that I actually want to be famous out there, to be able to think critically and scientifically. So help me make that trend. So there are multiple scientists out there having their own respective podcasts discussing such things that it's really important to think. We even had a presidential nominee to focus on the importance of math. So that's something that we really need to go ahead and continue to have as a self-actualized individual. Right, next one, sense of humor. I don't know if I'm funny enough. At least Miko buys my jokes when I have a whole bunch of puns. I don't know when he's a teenager if he's still going to be laughing about my puns. What do you think, Miko? All right, he's concentrating, typing notes. I don't know who shared this, but one of the funny things is, why is 9 scared of 7?
7, 8.
Oh, 10. Why is 10 scared of 7? Something like that.
Why is 6 scared of 7?
Okay.
7, 8, 9.
I guess 7, 8, 9. Exactly.
Oh. Why is 10 scared of 7?
Yeah, there we go. Because 7, 8, 9. All right. So sense of humor, really important. Okay, what you find funny. All right. Next characteristic is peak performance. You completing your degree, your program, you have achieved the performance level that you need to achieve. If you're a gold medalist, if you won the championship, whatever it is that you have achieved, it shows that you have peaked on a high level. So for example, for me, when I was Miko's age, I was rather an average student. I don't think I was super special. But when I went through my graduate program, because it's not only just remembering, it's a higher order thinking of skills, that really intrigued me and helped me to be really focused with school. And I would have never thought that I would complete it as a summa cum laude or with high distinction. That's really funny because, yeah, I never thought that's going to happen because I'm just an average so-so student. But when I'm a little bit more challenged from a higher order thinking of skills, then that's where I achieve peak performance, at least for that aspect. All right, Seligman, in terms of optimism. So this is the next theorist that we have. He focuses on positive psychology, again, because psychology for the most part was what's wrong with people. And Seligman identified, let's go ahead and identify what's good with people, what's right with people. So under that humanistic Maslow perspective or Rogers perspective, what is good with people? And that's what positive psychology is. And that's why this is entitled Strength Through Stress. What strengths do you gain because of stressful situations? The last theory here is the Tibetan perspective. The ego-driven self and the true self, how much of a match is it? What it means is that when I was younger, sure, I wanted to play the highest possible basketball league I can join. But I'm just not strong enough and fast enough and good enough to even play in our varsity of our university. Very far off. So my true self is need to go ahead and accept that just play it for fun and that's it. Okay? As if it's ego-driven self, I'm still going to be dreaming, I'm going to play in the NBA. No. And guess what? That is why I'm holding my Coach E's Mind Games podcasts or videos. Because I know I'm not going to reach the NBA. But maybe I can be a coach, or I can talk about it, analyze it from a mental perspective. Sure, that's something that I can do a little bit more of. Because my true self, with my education, with my training, with my experience, I can talk about the sports from that perspective, from a mental perspective, from a cognitive perspective. But I'm still not going to say I'm an expert, but I know I can talk a little bit about it. So, the Tibetan perspective is that you know who you are and you are who you are. You don't think that you are all that and you're not that. And I just want to go back again to intellectual integrity. And intellectual humility is that there's so many people walking around that they know everything. I respect them as a human being, but I find it really scary and concerning that they're talking that they know all that. So we have to be very careful about such things. And that's why I'm promoting critical thinking and scientific thinking. That is super important. Okay? Because if you don't know what you know, or if the basis of your information is not scientifically based, and then you're spreading all of these things on social media, just be very careful. Okay. All right. So the other thing about Tibetan perspective is the desires and attachments cause stress. And we will discuss this a little bit more in the next chapter, in the next few sessions. That we have desires and we have attachments to whatever. So right now, one of the things that they say is that the reason why we get burned out with all of these videos, meetings, and so on and so forth is because our attachment to human beings is that normally we go and shake hands, hug, whatever, and I can see your nonverbal cues as a pretty much a full human being. We're attached to that. And that's causing stress, that it's reminding that's being taken away from us because of this COVID-19 reality. Miko misses his school, right? Okay. But hopefully we reduce the attachment of it and just continue to go ahead and focus on what we can focus on. That's what it is. And then if attachments are highlighted with desires, and then with these desires especially, that's not reasonable, then just be careful. And that's what causes stress. Sure, we all desire and be attached to the normal life that we have. I have such a huge sports withdrawal. That's why I'm playing Scrabble all the time, because I need to channel that competitiveness to something. I'm watching all of these old Chicago Bulls games in the 90s because I need sports again in my life in one shape or form. And that helps me deal with stress. So Miko, how about you in terms of PE or whatever? That's why we're doing biking, right? In not so crowded areas. But anything that you want to discuss here regarding desires and attachments, feel free to unmute yourself. None? You're good? Okay. All right. Okay, so let's have a quick review here. The importance again of scientific and critical thinking. You want to focus on the positive. That's why this is strength through stress, so that we can all self-actualize in one shape or form and maintain that. Okay? So why do we journal? And I know in the future we'll be discussing this. All right? So the power of documenting your story. What is your story? It's really important to be able to express yourself. And then especially if you're just journaling for yourself, there's no judgment involved. And with that, you have greater awareness of the situation. So with self-actualized people and critical thinkers, you have a great idea of what the situation is, and the perception and whatever you perceive is rather realistic. Okay? And so that's why you journal. And so for your journal today, for this session, is critical thinking. How would you develop your critical thinking abilities? How would you use the scientific method in everyday choices? All right. So Miko, care to think about this? Care to share anything here? No? Okay. I think from now on, what we will do is with these journals, I want you to start thinking about them, and then you're going to share them in the next session. At least some responses here and there, because I know it's kind of difficult to, here's a question, answer right now. So I think with journal writing or writing, this is something we can review. Yeah, that's what we'll do. All right. Next is self-actualization. How will you continue to self-actualize? It's a very simple question. You've identified the needs that we need to have or achieve. How are you gaining them? And then how are you aiming to go ahead and to self-actualize for all of us to become better human beings? Not only for selfish reasons, but for other people as well. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing this for Miko. But technically speaking, I'm doing this for myself. Because he pushes me to go ahead and be productive and constructive in spite of the situation. All right, the willpower segment for today. What is your biggest challenge? And then again, how will you apply the I will, I won't, and I want? I know we briefly discussed this in the last session. So, Miko, is there anything that's a big challenge for you that you want to talk about? No? Okay. And then maybe this is something that we'll go ahead and do. We'll continue this in the next session. So you think about it. All right. And then you go ahead and identify what it is. I'm sorry, Miko, that gesture, were you trying to gesture of saying no by putting your hand through your neck area? Yes or no?
It wasn't on my neck.
Okay. All right.
It was just a line.
A thumb down will be fine. Oh, okay. All right. Just want to make sure because that gesture could be construed in the wrong way. I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. All right. So how will you apply the I will, the I won't, and I want? So for me, one of my biggest challenge, or the biggest challenge I had was, again, I was hit with the depression. I was not functional for a week. Okay, so I said I will stop watching and binge watching. I won't binge watch anymore, and I will do certain things. And so I set my mind that these are things that I'm going to do. So that's why we have these sessions on Mondays and Thursdays. And I want to go ahead and have the virtual staffing team, this organization, to be able to help up individuals out there and communities out there, that they find the right tutor, the right people that they need to staff, and so on and so forth. Were you about to say something, Miko? No? Okay. All right. Growth mindset, self-insight. Here we are again with the word accurate. Okay? So with the growth mindset, we need to continuously learn. But part of learning is that what do we know and not know? And for me, for my selfish reasons, the reason why I'm inviting all of these guests for the virtual town hall sessions is because I don't know everything. And I want to learn, I want to know. We have these respective businesses. We have the physical therapy practice. I'm launching this practice. How is this going to impact everything else in the future? All right, so Miko, care to talk about when these things would happen?
So we have this session, Strength Through Stress, at Thursday, 7 p.m. ET this week. And then another Monday, 10 a.m. next week, ET. We also have Workout Buddy on Friday on 10 a.m. ET.
Fridays, right?
Yes, Friday. And there's also Videocase/Scrabble, Videoke and Scrabble. That's Friday, 10 p.m. ET, 10 p.m. on Friday.
All right, so feel free to join us with any of these sessions. Majority are recorded, especially these things. So feel free to go ahead and learn and share accordingly. All right, so see you next session. And again, thank you. So hopefully you learned something substantial here. And these are my references to go ahead and make this happen. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, Miko.
Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this video informational and educational. Please share our videos and subscribe to our channel. If not, my dad will not give me dessert.